Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fletcher School's December send-off celebration. My name is Valentin Scham. I'm a MALT candidate and the current Januarian representative to the Fletcher Student Council. I would like to thank all of you for coming today, the students, your friends and families, the speakers of today's event, and of course, the faculty. Special thanks are going to Dean Blanco and her colleagues for organizing this great event. A friend of mine who studies at a university a few hours south of Boston recently complained to me that her fellow students didn't seem to have any passions. And I had to laugh because that is one of the things you really can't say about Fletcher students. As diverse as our cohort is, coming from all backgrounds and corners of the world, passion and collaboration seem to be the common thread that connects our student body. At Fletcher, you have the chance to spend time with people who analyze Chinese propaganda, run an NGO in Latin America, or work on research to influence India's national digital health policy. Our topics couldn't be more diverse, but every one of us is fueled by a shared passion. It is the conviction to go out into the world and improve the status quo. This is what truly makes Fletcher such a special place. On the day of my US visa interview, I had to drive to the US consulate in Munich. As a proper German, I had included a solid time buffer in my schedule, but I ended up jogging to the consulate because I could not find any space to deposit my backpack in the surrounding of the embassy due to strict COVID regulations. I had heard many stressful things about US visa interviews, and the Foreign Service officer at the next counter was already strongly interrogating a young girl that wanted to take English classes in the US. So I wasn't particularly relaxed when I handed my visa form to the officer that I was assigned to. To my surprise, after she had quickly glanced over my form, she started smiling. And when she looked up to me, she said, "Oh, you're going to Fletcher. That's so amazing. I just graduated there 2 years ago." I think it's needless to say that my visa interview went better than for the girl next to me. Events like these happen not only in Munich, but also in Washington, Kinshasa, Bangkok, or wherever you may end up. Because Fletcher Mafia matters. Fletcher matters. And now it's up to you to make your Fletcher experience matter to the world. With that, I would like to wish you all the best of luck and introduce you to Ms. Rachel Kite, the Dean of the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy.
Thank you, Valentin. Welcome to our Januarians, who are a mixture of GBAs, MAHAs, LLMs, MAs, MIBs, CSPPs, and PhDs. Welcome to this ceremony, which is in your honor, as a small celebration of your achievements and the chance for us to send you off into the world with all our support and gratitude. This world is a fast-moving one, with plenty that can cause anxiety and stress, but also hope and excitement. At moments like this, I always turn to W.H. Auden, who wrote so evocatively of anxiety at a critical time in the 20th century. And leafing through his work the other night, I found the perfect note for today. In times of joy, all of us wished we possessed a tail we would wag. I hope that you can see all of our tails wagging, especially Rocky's underneath his gown. As Januarians, before you, you have played a larger role than your cohort actually would demand of you. Your role is always an important one in this school. As Januarians, you weave your way into our fabric from the moment that you arrive. Your taxiing is shorter and you take off more quickly than most Fletcher students. You have, as Januarians before you, organized and run student conferences. You've contributed to and served in leadership positions at the school and in school publications. You've served on committees. You've been essential in student life, in clubs and societies. You've studied hard. You've TA'd and RA'd and taken up internships and research opportunities that have extended you and therefore extended the school. I always think of Januarians as Fletcher's syncopation. You come in off the beat and you make us move and swing differently. We love you for that. Thank you. And Januarians, by your name, January, Janice, you must look forward and you must look back. But looking forward, you must usher in this new world. Build your careers on the strong foundations of scholarship and friendship that you have established here. Don't take lazy no's for an answer. Don't accept lazy yeses either. We need new institutions, new norms to make this a better place. Vaccine inequity is not okay on so many levels. If you think it is, argue your case boldly. Either way, do something about it. Xenophobia is corrosive. If you disagree, state your case with evidence and data. Either way, don't do nothing about it. International governance is creaking and fraying at the edges. Plan to repair it or tear it down. Whichever way, do so with dexterity and determination. Build bridges as you go. Rising inequality is destabilizing. So run for office, fix it or bake it in. Use fintech to reach the bottom of the pyramid. Be there to support the most marginalized as they fall through the cracks as migrants or the undocumented or as women and children in places where their rights are not yet assured. Just don't turn your back on it. Digital conflict challenges the ethics of the military and its civilian control. Ask the right questions, voice concerns, but please be part of the solution. Whoever you are, wherever you land, this is a community that will be there for you in good times and in the more challenging. We will take great pride in your accomplishments, great and small, and we are grateful to the contributions you've already made while you were here and that you will continue to make as proud alumni. Also, in the words of W.H. Auden, you owe it to all of us to get on with what you're good at. And now it's my pleasure to hand the floor to Professor Pat Shaner. He needs no introduction, but I would like to say that Professor Shaner represents for me one of the greatest assets of the Fletcher School, a professor who is not only the master of his specialized field of study, but who is current in the world where his specialization is applied and who is sought after for his advice in the real world. He is committed to you and your futures and is a wonderful spirit to have as part of this community. Professor Shaner, thank you.
Dean Pegg, thank you. The extraordinary remarks, certainly not deserved, certainly from my point of view. Welcome, everybody. Great pleasure, a great honor, actually, for me to address you. I have to say, actually, I was hoping, I understand that there'll be a lot of the GBA alums here someplace, and perhaps they see me, and I will welcome them and congratulate, obviously, everyone receiving a degree during this ceremony, or certainly, in January to come. I have to say, though, when I looked at I noticed the schedule of events, and I was looking at all the speakers, and I noticed that each of the speakers had an F apostrophe something after their names, and mine didn't. And I didn't know if that was an oversight or if the dean was trying to tell me something that perhaps maybe I was being delisted or something like that. But I will tell you, and I hope you all realize this, that I am absolutely a very proud alumnus of this institution, Maribel. And so a couple of things about that you might find interesting. That I tried to connect through all of these various degree programs. And so, again, I congratulate the GMAPs and certainly the LLMs, and I've had the opportunity to work with some of these folks along the way. I have a mold. And so I know the largest community here today are students that are receiving a mold degree. And I know that oftentimes, we struggle to explain to somebody what a mold actually is. So I have to tell you a very brief, but to me, a very sort of affectionate story. So I'm at an event in Astana in Kazakhstan, of all places. And this had to do with some work that I do around sovereign wealth funds. And we're at something that appeared to be sort of a state dinner. And I'm sitting at a table completely random with regard to the way that the seating had been arranged. And I was sitting next to someone who was working in Malaysia at an institution in Malaysia. And so, I introduced myself and I provided my title and I said, yeah, I teach at the Fletcher School. And it wasn't even a greeting. This person just sort of reached across the table. I get this giant hug and all I hear from his mouth is, I'm a mold. Now, I imagine some people sitting, at the table, might have sort of interpreted that to be, I'm appalled, but nonetheless, they were looking at both of us like we were long lost brothers, and no one had any idea what a mold was except the two of us. But of course, the whole conversation extended, of course, right, from mold to Fletcher to what's the point? To an absolutely intimate, connection that the two of us had in that room that no one else did. And it all circulated around the degree and the notion of the degree and the commitment that we had, to the degree. Enormously proud of having a mold, right? Certainly. Most people obviously connect me with the GB, with the MIB. And so I have a connection with all you guys that are doing the MIB. Some of you guys, all of you guys I know very well. And of course, I like to tell people my connection there is primarily through Professor Jacques, who you suffered through or had to, given the rigor of his program. And now I'm left with the legacy of having to teach that to the GBA crowd. And so I connect also with them. So I find an intimate connection with I hope everybody in this room. And so if you don't know me, recognize that I feel like I know you through this institution. To me, it makes me enormously proud. I was thinking, how can I connect with you all today in a way that is it may be a little bit lighthearted, but yet at the same time profound. And so in turning to that sort of second piece to the narrative here, I was trying to think of a proper way to sort of connect with you. And I'm looking at my bookshelf and I come across this. Now, I'm sure none of you know this book. It's called The Dangerous Place. Some of you may know the author. It's Daniel Patrick Moynihan. So if you know Daniel Patrick Moynihan, many of you may not, but you might be, it might be useful for you to know that he was a scholar, he was an academic, certainly he was an ambassador, he was a labor secretary, he was a great senator from New York for a very long time. The thing that's most important to everybody in this room, from my standpoint, is he is a great alumnus of the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy. And he holds a master's degree. So those of you that are receiving an MA today, you should be pleased to know that this is a great alumnus of Fletcher with an MA and also a PhD from the Fletcher School. And the book, A Dangerous Place, he became ambassador to the UN. And he writes, I had learned that the world is a dangerous place and that not everybody knows this, which I found especially curious. I have to say, after 50 years since this book was written, the world is certainly no less a dangerous place. And in fact, if anything, perhaps it's become more dangerous. We've become more fractious, more tribalist. There's more me, to echo the words of the dean. There's less us. There's more later. There's less now. There's more no. There's less yes. And it's interesting that the work that Senator Moynihan had done, both as an academic and then later as a statesman, truly a statesman, he knew these things well and oftentimes presaged many of these things in the work that he did. It's curious. We say the world is getting smaller, and through technology, perhaps that's the case. Through speedier transport, that's certainly the place, right? Curiously though, despite the world getting smaller, it seems that in some respects, we seem to grow further and further apart. Think about Zoom, it's very paradoxical, right? Zoom is both the blessing and the bane, certainly, of our existence. And Zoom facilitates this. We don't have to meet people anymore. We'll do a Zoom call. We'll leave our cameras off. And where's the connection, with that, right? So one of the things that I think we need to guard against, and I will again echo, we didn't plan this in advance, her remarks were so extraordinary, but I will echo a couple of things that Dean Kite had to say. And first of all, question, do we acquiesce in these things? I mean, should we acquiesce in these things? What is Fletcher's mission? What's our job? What are we here to do, right? How do we actually confront these big issues today? How do we address issues of climate change, inclusive growth? How do we address issues related to human rights, humanitarian relief, national security? As an institution, what's our role in building sustainable businesses? How do we drive sustainable development, right? How do we distinguish this institution? How do we make it different? How do we make it relevant? How do we make it important? In terms of prescriptive advice, I don't have any great words of wisdom, but I can share with you based on my own experience some things. And the one thing that I will certainly share, and again, we didn't plan this in advance, it's extraordinary. I would like to say great minds, but only one of those minds is a great mind. Madam Dean, it's certainly not mine. Battle against the comfort of what I call the cocoon. Those that focus and center and even exploit things that tear us apart, that distinguish us. Instead, build on the strengths of will and spirit that bring us together. And I see this in some respects as the great tradition of the Fletcher School. I mean, I truly, truly believe that. And I go back to my dinner experience at Astana, somebody I didn't know, but now I know so well, right? And so intimately, right? In that regard. Back to Moynihan, the world is most certainly a dangerous place. You guys know that. You know that, okay? As you step forward, your mission, our mission, again, extraordinary connection here. I wrote to build bridges that promote community and that bring us together in singular goals, whatever these are. They could be inclusion, they could be sustainable growth, they could be governance, they could be national and international peace and security. Everybody here is in one way or another is an expert on some of these themes. Use these things to unite us. So somewhere long ago, I learned that the first bridge you cross when you leave here will always bring you back here. And I'm the evidence of the fact that I never left. And I don't plan to leave unless after today, somebody else makes a judgment otherwise. Yeah, I live up in New Hampshire. Robert Frost would call this, in some respects, the road less traveled. And in fact, for me, that has made all the difference. And I think it will make the difference for you. So your journey starts now. The benefit that you guys have is you get a head start. You can actually run ahead. I wish you every grace, every blessing, and for the sake of all of us, every success. Thank you.
Thanks, Professor. Our next speaker is Alfred Soja. According to my Fletcher profile, Alfred is interested in entrepreneurship and likes to visit coffee shops around the country or to hike in the mountains. But since I've worked with him this semester on a group project, I can also say that he likes, just like we all do, analyzing overly complex policy papers, having Zoom calls that are lasting for hours, and doing late night work sessions. So in other words, he's perfectly qualified as a student speaker. And with these words, I'd like to introduce you to Alfred Soja.
Thank you, Valentin, and thank you everyone for joining us here today. So just want to say, at least I want to begin with saying thank you for giving me the honor and the privilege to speak to you here today. I'm truly grateful that I get to represent my class, the Januarian class of 2022. As we are about to step outside these Fletcher doors for the very last time, I'm reminded and amazed by everything the world has lived through in these past 2 years. First, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle had a baby. And rumor has it, he already speaks 2 languages. Now, I don't know what that says about my own language learning abilities, but that's big news right there. NASA astronauts Christina Koch and Jessica Meir completed the first ever all-female spacewalk. Israel sworn in its new unity government. Who would have thought? And for the first time in Fletcher's history, no one argued on socialist. Actually, we all know that's not true. And to be honest, it probably never will be. But also, the world saw climate disruptions more clearly than ever. Catastrophic wildfires, bigger and more frequent storms, and more intense droughts. We witnessed just how fast fake news spreads, how difficult it has become to protect our democratic freedoms, and how much there is left to do just to secure them in the first place. Discrimination, representation, polarization. It was a lot. It seems like surprisingly eventful years when we take into account the COVID pandemic. Little did we know when we all first met each other that it would be the beginning of a long virtual friendship. One where we somehow feel comfortable drinking a glass of wine by ourselves, yet in the company of fellow students hundreds of miles away. And I am amazed today by how close I feel to all of you, despite having left campus over a year ago. But it's true, COVID may have stopped in-person classes the majority of our time here, but it didn't stop the world from spinning. I don't know if all of you are aware just of what our Januarian class of 2022 has been up to or have accomplished these past 2 years at the Fletcher School. For example, Mary Menzimer was an RA for SovereignNet and helped put on events related to institutional investment. As a lead researcher, she helped publish the 2021 Responsible Asset Allocator Report, and just a few weeks ago, led a Fletcher team to first place in the Cornell University case competition. Well done. Chima Omike co-founded a technology innovation hub in Nigeria. After graduating, he will continue working with tech companies on the enterprise level applications, helping them figure out how to differentiate their strategy in AI and sustainability related domains. Well done. Important accomplishments indeed. If we learned one thing more than anything at Fletcher that we can take with us forward, is that nothing is out of reach, even in the midst of a global public health crisis. So what is it about this place that makes us look up high and passionately pursue our goals? Was it the vigorous core? Finals? Hours of study groups? The memos maybe? No, it was us. The realization we came to behind these academic doors and the tools we received were invaluable, but by no means the essence of our time here. If you ask me, the greatest gift that Fletcher could have given us is the gift of people. 2 years ago, when we were dispersed in 25 countries, I never anticipated that I would be pushed to excel and pursue my potential, not by an outstanding boss or a brilliant professor. We still love you. But by my fellow classmates. Standing before you today, I can tell you, I'm here thanks to you. We all have our personal story here. What we did before, what drove us to Fletcher, and what we're going to do after. But as we look to our post-Fletcher future, it is no longer about our individual story, but about our responsibility as the ones fortunate enough to have been here to take the tools that we have been given and lead the struggle against the seemingly impossible. Now, the seemingly impossible for a Fletcher student right now is probably finding a job that would put a dent into their 70,000 student debt. Just kidding, kind of. More like creating effective change. Not only be the change we want to see in the world, but also change it to what it should be: fairer, kinder, more just. The community we have formed through our joint trials of impossibilities makes anything possible. The lifelong friends we made, the values we share, the skill sets we developed, and more importantly, our mutual aspiration to a better world are all things that bond us and will bond us forever. And it's what will lead us, I expect all of us, to a great life-changing accomplishments. And this won't be easy. Change never has been. And agents of change especially have rarely been greeted with open arms. But this is our time, Fletcher Januarian class of 2022. So let's make it count. Thank you so much. Now, I also get the pleasure to introduce today's keynote speaker and to welcome Maureen Alphonse Charles back to campus. Miss Alphonse Charles graduated from Fletcher in 1987 with a MAL degree and is a member of Fletcher's Board of Advisors. She also sits on the Fletcher Women's Leadership Award Selection Committee. In addition, she serves as the board trustee and the chair of the University Advisory Board at Boston University, from which she graduated magna cum laude. In true Fletcher style, her resume boasts a remarkable and distinguished record of innovation, leadership, and service. She has been a pioneer in diversity, equity, and inclusion work, and has held several leadership roles in executive search consulting, finance, development, and operations efforts for a variety of institutions. She currently serves as the Senior Vice President, Talent, Diversity, and Equity Managing Director for a diversified search group, whose business approach and family of executive search businesses have been recognized by Forbes as a top 5 search firm in the US and the fastest growing company in the executive search sector. Earlier in her career, Ms. Alphonse Charles was Senior Vice President and Chief Operating Officer at The Partnership, a consulting firm that works across sectors to build multicultural and diverse talent. She also served as Vice President of Executive Acquisition at Cityyear, an educational nonprofit, and as Managing Director at the search firm Horton International. Finally, she was co-head of the diversity practice at the global law firm Whitehead Mann Pendleton James. She started her career in banking and corporate finance with Swiss Bank. Her leadership and impact extended beyond her workday, contributing in various roles to the Boston community. She was the first African-American president of the Boston Club, the longest standing organization in the Northeast that focuses on advancement of women's leadership, where she founded and chaired its Diversity and Inclusion Committee. She also served on the board of overseers for WGBH and as an overseer for the New England Conservatory of Music. She chaired the board of National Conference for Christians and Jews here in the Boston area and has served as a judge on the Regional Selection Committee for the White House Fellows Program. And by the way, I just got confirmation from our good friend, Christopher Pomford, who just graduated and is a finalist for this program. So if you're watching, Chris, good luck. Currently, she sits on the board of the Boys and Girls Clubs of Boston. Maureen has been recognized by a myriad of organizations, including the Boston Business Journal, the Woman of the Harvard Club, and YWCA, Boston's Academy of Women Achievers, which recognizes some of Boston's brightest, boldest, and most influential women. We are honored to have her with us today. Please join me in welcoming Maureen Alphonse Charles.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for that very gracious introduction. I wasn't even sure if it was me anymore, so thank you so much for that. So good afternoon, Januarians, class of 2022. Good afternoon to you. I didn't hear anything. What's going on here? So I know I have the mask on, so let's go at it again. Good afternoon, class of 2022 Januarians. Okay, that's it there. Okay. When Dean Kite reached out and asked me to provide this address, I thought to myself, what a wonderful opportunity to share, especially after this year of COVID and so much reflection. It is indeed a gift for us to be here together this afternoon, for which I'm really, really pleased about. Even though I graduated in 1987, as you heard, every time I visit Fletcher, I'm filled with so many powerful recollections. I can still vividly remember my acceptance to Fletcher and the gracious scholarship that was offered by Dean Shane, as he stated, "What does it take for you to come here?" From that moment on, Fletcher was a special place. It had been recommended to me by my sister, a Harvard grad, who let me know that if I wanted the best school of international affairs, Fletcher was the #1. I was a shy, yet a classic Myers-Briggs ENTJ. Some of you know about Myers-Briggs, right? Okay, there's an ENTJ up there. Jamaican Panamanian student. Yes, I liked reggae and continue to like reggae as much as I like salsa. I was the daughter, and still am, of a line of Methodist ministers, pioneers, and a librarian. Education was a top priority for us, along with public service. I spent my formative years in Britain and then returned to the Caribbean. During my years in Britain, our home was a welcoming place of many of the African diplomats. The world, excuse me, of diplomacy was alluring for me from my early years. Fletcher was a dream come true. Here I was exposed to international law, conflict resolution, negotiations, environmental policy, and change management courses. Coffee hour and the Socrates method were always thought-provoking. Readings were intense, and class interactions were impactful. My analytical skills, ability to synthesize tons of information and prioritize began here. Milestones in my career have ranged from my short stint at the UN to corporate finance training in New York. They selected 2 of us to join a small class of 25 trainees. I was one of the only persons of color working in sales and marketing and asset management. My corporate finance training director said to me, "Fake it until you become it." And Amy Cuddy at Harvard often says, "Fake it until you become it and make it." My career has been a mosaic welded together, excuse me, by a string of mentors and sponsors who had a belief in me and the possibilities. Some of you may recall Bart Norse, to Dean Sheehan, who is up there. I'm so pleased to see you. I just have to give you a hand. And in actuality, the list goes on. Another critical turning point in my life was returning to Fletcher. and working in admissions, reporting to Dean Sheehan. Yes, and having the opportunity to visit many of the historically Black colleges and universities. I realized the issues of access and social justice in America. This was to set the foundation for my diversity, equity, and inclusion work, which is reflected in my current position at Diversified Search Group. Another unforgettable experience was when the CEO of ValueQuest, female pioneer and contrarian equity manager, invited me to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and she invited me to parasail. Our paths crossed through Ned Gray, Fletcher of 85 grad, and you all need to know the Fletcher network is vibrant and it's alive, it's real. And she was intent on building my leadership bench strength. She was the first to invite me to parasail. I note I've never done it again. I learned at that time what it means to become uncomfortable and to be comfortable with that feeling, to know that risk is inevitable and the possibilities are boundless. As I think about takeaways that I'd like to share with you, let me say, first and foremost, always remember to map out your environment. Take the time to build up your emotional intelligence. It is so important to be self-aware as it gives you the privilege to soar. Think strategically, even if your position is at the operational or even tactical level. Hold fast to your fundamental values. Reconcile and be true to your integrity. Resolve your emotional relationship with money and the truth. Your integrity will provide your freedom. Also, treasure your relationships. Nurture your mentors, your sponsors, and all your networks. Giving back is as important as building your career. Please, please, please remember Fletcher as you do so. Also, remember the importance of putting the H back into humanity. Be attuned to the voice of the voiceless. Finally, know that I am because you are, a wise Southern African philosophy that conveys the essence of our humanity is Ubuntu. You can become a leader if you choose to. And know that leadership is more about the ship than the leader. Congratulations, Januarians. Go out there and get them. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. My name is Maribel Blanco. I am Executive Associate Dean, and it's now time for the presentation of the graduates. I'm going to invite our speakers to please take a seat in this front row. Thank you. And I'm going to ask those of you here in ASEAN to please hold your applause until the end. Master of Laws in International Law, Bahram Ahmadi. Master of Arts in Humanitarian Assistance, Hadush Gidey Gebremedin. Master of Arts, Mohammed Ibrahim Abdullahi. Christina L. Alabado. Alan M. Blair. Zura Halimova. Ayarat Kosakul. Rosemary Adelaide Lark. Julie Salom. Nikolaos Stratikis. Master of Science in Cybersecurity and Public Policy, Mariam A. Amini. Master of Global Administration, Business Administration, Khalid B. Al Saud. William D. Asbury. Adam Bastiano. Alyssa E. Besta McNish. Joseph D. Dunbar. Nicholas Haley. Douglas Kaufman. Kadar Franz Kurpad. Brent Lemberg. Anjali E. Martin. Dieudonné N. Ramsey. Alexandra J. Schwal. Bennett Schwartz. Catherine J. Spatz. Catherine Turnus. Master of International Business, Drishti B. Daglia. Ming Dong Fang. John Mark E. Gladstone Jr. Mary C. Menzimer. Chima R. Omike. Serena Seferian. And Alfred Jovalin Soja. Master of Arts in Law and Diplomacy, Mina Alemzadeh. Elizabeth M. Alexion. Samir M. Belkacem. Connor Trung Boba. John D. Burrow. Kaustubh Chaturvedi. Layan Damanhuri. Elizabeth Dijkstra McCarthy. Leila A. Ferguson. Laurent X. Frappez. Diana N. Haber. Pragya Handa. Megan Quinn Harris. Adam Hassan. Sing Win Hu. Grady L. Jacobson. Victoria J. Johnson. Ryan H. Katan. Julian Crosby Kelly. Malavika Krishnan. Arthur Man Ki Lo. Marina D. Lorenzini. Aida Sige Lulsiget. Kritika Mehera. Rebecca C. Melvin. Narjas Mohammed Mahdi. Nicholas M. Normand. Bridget K. Norris. Masrura Mariam Oishi. Josephine Omoyugbo. Jules A. Otino Loeffler. Shifa Panwala. Marilena C. Pelekudas. Kamal Rathod. Mohit Saini. Lyndon R. Sam. William Saturno. Kavya Srivastava. Gina Standard. Kristen M. Strong. Weshage Sun. Kelsey L. Thompson. E. Wen Sao. Brian Tudor. Megan Kathleen Busby Waff. Ava Wang. Matthew J. Welchert. Nicholas C. Westfield. Victoria Yu. And Doctors of Philosophy, Frances T. Burke. Meg K. Gulliford. Sedenka Mislikova. You should all be so proud of what you have accomplished, especially given the extraordinary circumstances of the pandemic. As we prepared the campus for your return this fall, it was not lost on Dean Kite and me that these 3.5 months carried particular significance for you, as this time represented the final opportunity for you to be with your classmates, professors, and friends in person before completing your studies. We feel so very fortunate that you were able to do so, and hope that masks and testing protocols aside, you can look back on this time together with particular fondness after having been connected only by Zoom for so long. Dean Kite and I hope that you will be able to join us in person for the Fletcher commencement ceremony this May, though we appreciate that not everybody may be able to come back. So we have gathered here today to celebrate you and to allow you to celebrate each other and your accomplishments before you head off to start your next chapter. I want to echo Dean Kite's remarks by reminding you that your time with us now represents the beginning of your lifelong relationship with Fletcher. We look forward to seeing what you do next and to supporting you and celebrating you, whatever your endeavors are. I extend my most heartfelt congratulations to each and every one of you and to your families who share in this accomplishment. I want to invite our graduating students to remain in place. We're going to have an opportunity for photographs, some group photographs, and I want to invite all of the rest of our guests to join us in the Hall of Flags for some refreshments and to celebrate our students. I want to thank those of you on Zoom and wish you all a good weekend and happy holidays. Thank you and congratulations.